All right, we are at the top of the hour. Welcome everyone to Datasource Consulting and our educational series. Today's webinar, InfaTools. We'll be doing a live demonstration as well as sharing a little bit about Datasource. Just to give you a sense for the agenda, we will start with introductions of the people that will be presenting today, followed by information on Datasource and our relationship with Informatica. Then we'll get quickly to the demo, and we will save some time at the end for Q&A. And just so you know logistically how Q&A will work, at the bottom of your screen you'll see a Q&A square there. We have everyone muted, so it's very much so like chat. So at the end of the presentation, if you have questions, then please at any point start typing them in. And I would encourage people to participate. You know, what I have found in the webinars that I have attended is that that's the good stuff, right? Because we all know through years of school, so oftentimes the question in our head is the same question in others. So please participate. I think that it adds value, and a lot of times it's really meaningful. So with that, let me introduce ourselves. My name is Debora Langer. I'm Vice President of Sales and Partner here at Datasource Consulting. And I am joined by Mr. Jerry Perez. He is our data integration practice lead. He is also the developer and the creator of InfaTools. So you're hearing it straight from the source, if you will. So welcome. A little bit about Datasource Consulting. We are a company that has been focusing exclusively for the last decade on enterprise data management, business intelligence, and data warehousing. And we provide both strategic as well as implementation services to our clients. So from a strategic perspective, how you can think about this is that we provide BI roadmaps, data governance roadmaps, comprehensive project plans, assessment, enterprise data management, strategic counseling. So from a strategic perspective, those are all areas where we can help you get things going and get a vision for what you want to accomplish. In addition to that, we also provide implementation services, and we do this under 6 practices. And those practices are data integration, data quality, data architecture, data governance, MDM or master data management, and reporting and analytics. And when I use the word practice, what I mean, it's not a word that we take lightly. What we mean there is that we have a practice lead at the helm, and it's their responsibility to develop methodologies, best practices, standards, proficiencies, design templates, and keep current with what is happening in their field. Datasource is a company that we serve clients all across the United States, from mid-size to Fortune 500. And in addition to being very passionate about data and the work we do, as I'm sure all the attendees are very passionate about data as well, because it's very exciting, right, and what you can do from it and the learning. But in addition to that, we also spend our free time giving back to the community. On the West Coast, one of our partners is on the TDWI, which stands for the Data Warehouse Institute Board of Directors. Here in Colorado, I'm on the TDWI Board of Directors. And then our managing partner is on the faculty, teaching courses throughout the nation, as well as a BI Best Practices Judge. I just love this graphic. It's a little bit busy around the edges. The font might be a little bit small, but at a glimpse, you can see all the different areas that comprise enterprise data management. So if you look there to the left on the gray area, information management, you'll find all of the pillars that I mentioned earlier, data quality, data integration, master data management, et cetera. As you move up to data governance, right, you involve the business and collaboratively you work together, working with compliance, controls, standards, rules, alignment, priorities, policies, and procedures. And as you move down to the golden area there, once you've stood up a BI program, you now have a program, and it's constantly evolving. We all know this, right? You're adding new source systems, new companies are being acquired, priorities are shifting, and so it's constantly evolving. So you'll see that circle, it's just a constant fluid motion. Our relationship with Informatica goes back a number of years. We began being a premier channel partner 7 years ago. We were one of the first authorized partners to do Informatica health checks. Now, this has since changed and opened up to a number of partners. However, it is something that we do like to tout that they trusted us very early in doing the Informatica health checks. Many of our consultants are certified on multiple products across the platform. In addition, we were the only partner invited to the Big Data Edition internal training. In 2010, we were named Colorado Partner of the Year, and we've now grown to the point where we are the largest Informatica partner here in Colorado. 2014 and 2015, we were the Western Territory Financial Services go-to partner. And in 2013, we launched InfaTools at Informatica World. And I can tell you that this tool created a lot of buzz. I don't know if any of you were in attendance, but there was a lot of people around our booth, and there was a lot of excitement because it saves cost, it saves time, and so it's something that is designed to work really well with PowerCenter. And so there was so much buzz around it that Informatica asked us to put it in their Informatica marketplace, and I know Jerry's going to touch on that. So with that, let me go ahead and introduce your presenter today, Mr. Jerry Perez. Jerry.
Thank you, Deborah, and thanks for everybody who's been able to join on our WebEx today to demonstrate our Stage Mapping Accelerator tool, which is part of our InfaTools suite of applications. As we mentioned before, please hold your questions till the end of the presentation so that we can finish on time. However, if you have any questions, feel free to add them to the Q&A box that you'll find at the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. Before we begin, I want to provide a brief overview of InfaTools and the Stage Mapping Accelerator. InfaTools is Datasource suite of tools and applications that are used to enable faster delivery for our clients. Today, we're demonstrating our first full standalone application, the Stage Mapping Accelerator. Stage Mapping Accelerator is an added service to our consulting offering. It is a streamlined application that provides seamless interaction with Informatica PowerCenter and with relational databases in order to pull sources and targets directly from the application. Because it's seamless, it actually eliminates the need for additional applications such as Excel or scripts or anything that is outside of the Informatica platform. Before using the InfaTools Accelerator, there are some requirements. First, the application needs to be running on the same machine as the Informatica PowerCenter client, and the user must have privileges to deploy objects into Informatica PowerCenter server, as well as read and write access to the database schemas that will be used for sources and targets as we're generating the mappings, the sessions, and the workflows. Okay, so at this point, let's just jump right in to our demo. On my screen, you'll see on the left, we have the Stage Mapping Accelerator, and to the right, we basically are going to have Informatica PowerCenter Designer and Workflow Manager so that we can see the objects that are being generated into Informatica. The tool presents navigation on the left and navigation at the top right-hand corner as well. You can skip through each screen, providing the necessary information for stage mapping generation, or you can just skip some of these screens or jump back a few if you actually have to redeploy or modify something that you have entered throughout the process of creating a stage mapping. First, we need to set up an environment, and right here we have a few environments that we have already created. But let's go ahead and clean that up and create a brand new environment where nothing is, so that we can demonstrate to you from scratch how to build one of these processes. Okay, so here's a clean application. First, we need to select where Informatica is installed on the client machine. The reason we do that is because this is what's providing us the interface between Informatica PowerCenter server and client. The tool basically is going through the directory structure of the client, pulling the necessary files that it needs in order to interface with the server. This usually takes a minute or two, depending on how fast your machine may be, okay? So once the application has gone through the directory structure, we get a green flag that we have all the files necessary, and we can get started building our environment. So let's create an environment for development. So we'll call it dev env. Simple enough. Okay. After we create the environment, we basically provide the necessary credentials to connect to the domain in Informatica PowerCenter server. We provide the domain name, the host, the gateway port, whatever security domain you may be using, username, and password. Once we enter that information, now we need to interact with the Informatica repository server to pull information that the application will use to facilitate the process of generating mapping. So right now, we hit the Get Services button, and what that is doing right now is contacting the Informatica repository server and is fetching any repository services that reside on the domain. and any integration services. Now that it has pulled them, basically I have a listing of it. We can see to the right that this is the Informatica environment that I'm attempting to access. All these three domains, infra, prod, test, and development, all these repositories reside on the same domain, and that's why I was able to get all three of them. There's also an integration service for each one of them. Now I need to contact the Informatica repository server again that I've selected in this case because we're doing a development environment setup. We'll go ahead and select the development repository and basically get the dependencies. And the dependencies, basically what it's going to do is just go into the repository and pull all these folders and connections associated with the repository that we have available to us on the PowerCenter server. And it's fetching the whole thing. So now we have set up our first environment. This is our development environment. Next, we need to create connections to interface with the database services so that we can generate our mappings. For this particular demo, we're going to be using Microsoft SQL Server and Oracle. SQL Server will be used as the source, and Oracle will be used as the target. So I'll just create a connection to Microsoft SQL Server first. I'll name it, okay. Then we'll go ahead and provide credentials. And select the database for this connection, which is Microsoft SQL Server. Now, currently, we're supporting DB2, SQL Server, Oracle, and Teradata, and ODBC. But we're working on more native support for more databases. So we'll go ahead and select Microsoft SQL Server for this one. We'll enter our host and our port and test the connection. Okay, connection was valid. We'll go ahead and create a target connection for Oracle. And for this demo, we actually created a schema named DW Page Baseball. We'll provide the password, and we'll set the database type to Oracle. Continue putting the credentials, host name, host port, and the service name that Oracle has. So we'll go ahead and test the connection. Valid. Okay, so now we've set up an environment and to connect to Informatica PowerCenter server and database connections to connect to our relational databases. Next, this is a new feature that we implemented in Stage Mapping Accelerator version 2.0, which we showed at Informatica World this past summer. This screen allows you to basically modify the data types that will be pushed to the target and convert them so that basically we can adhere to whatever standards your enterprise uses. For instance, if I'm pulling data from SQL Server and pushing it to my target, which will be Oracle, maybe I don't want the character types in SQL Server to go to character in Oracle, so I may want that to be varchar2. I just modified that, so from now on, every time I see a character in SQL Server, it will be pushed as a varchar2 in Oracle. Now, part of the process that InfaTools does while it generates stage mappings is that it also creates the DDL scripts for the target, and it deploys it if you do have permissions to deploy the object. So not only will it create the stage mappings, the sessions, the workflows, and Informatica objects, but it will also create the target database script to be deployed for our process. Once we set up our data map, we'll go ahead and create a project. InfaTools Stage Mapping Accelerator is project-based. So what that means is that we can basically save all of our settings, all of our projects, all of our connections that we created and refer back to them at a later time so that we can modify it and redeploy the objects if we needed to, or we need to migrate from one environment to another. So we'll show that shortly. Create a dev project. Okay. Once we created our project name with some description, we select the environment. Now, we created the development environment earlier. At a later time, we could create a test environment and a production environment. And what that means is that we can refer back to this project and repoint the environment to a test and production without any changes, being able to redeploy those objects to those environments. After we set up the environment, we get to select a template for our mapping. Now, we have a series of templates that out of the box that are provided with InfaTools, but InfaTools is highly customizable. So what that means is that we generally end up creating a custom template for our clients just to adhere to the standards that they have already set in their data warehouse or enterprise data warehouse environment. For now, we'll just go ahead and create something simple. We'll just do a pass-through mapping. and now we'll set this project to be active. Okay, so now that the project has been set active, we can just go ahead and move on to the next screens to associate the sources or import the sources that we need for stage mapping generation. So I'm going to choose my SQL Server connection that I created earlier, and I'm going to be pulling some tables from our baseball database in SQL Server. I'll just select a handful of these tables. After selecting them, I imported them into the tool, and the tool, what it ended up doing was validating and vetting each one of these objects as it's importing them into the tool. And it's basically indicating to me that some of these tables may not have a primary key, and that I have the opportunity at this point to apply one if I wanted to. For the first table and the third table, we see that both of these have actually a primary key. The second one has no unique keys or no primary keys. So for me to set that up, I just double-click to select that object. And I have done some research on this table before, and I know that from the source system, their uniqueness, even though it is not specified in the source schema, are these 4 keys. So I'll just go ahead and select those 4 keys to be my primary key. And now the object has been set up to have a custom key. We also see that there's another type of key here. This is the blue colored key here. And what this means is that this table does not have a primary key, but it did find a unique key that we'll use as a primary key when generating the target objects into the Oracle schema. Okay, we imported our objects. Now we get to select where we want our mappings to reside based on our templates. When we set up our environment, the application went to Informatica repository and was able to select all these folders, as you see to my right. I'll just go ahead and select the stage folder. It also imported connections that already were in those folders in Informatica PowerCenter environment. So I'll just go ahead and select a source one that I had previously created in the Informatica environment, and I will do a target Oracle one for my target connection. Then we get to apply any settings to our session, any properties that we may want to apply when the sessions are generated. This should look fairly familiar to those of you who have been developing Informatica mapping sessions and workflows for a while. I'm just going to set for now just to write backwards compatible log, and I'll set the target load type to normal, and I'll also set fail parents if the instance fails on the session. Then I'm going to go ahead and select some properties for my workflow. So I'm just going to go and set write backwards compatible log for now. Okay. Finally, I get to set some naming conventions and identify where I want the target tables to be deployed in Oracle. So first, I want to set up a naming convention for a target table. Out of the box, it has an A for acquisition. So I'll just go ahead and name that SDG_BB for stage baseball. And down below, we see a little preview of what the table name will end up being. We'll go ahead and export the database tables to the target schema, and then we get to select which target schema we want those tables to be deployed to. So we already had this schema, DW Stage Baseball. We select it. Then we get to set up a naming convention for our mappings. This looks pretty consistent with the Informatica standards, but instead of having the source table name, I'm just going to put the target table name. And by doing so, I see a little preview of what my mappings are going to be named. They're going to be named M_SDGBB, just like this target table I'm going to create, and then the table name. I want to create one workflow per session, and I want to export all the objects to Informatica. We've added this option here for output directory path. You can actually set a directory on your machine in the case that you may not have the rights to deploy the Informatica XML code or deploy the SQL script to generate tables. This location will basically hold all the information, all the scripts necessary so that you can pass them along to potentially an administrator that can deploy those objects for you. All right, so once we're done with our setup, we're ready to deploy our objects. We have a little summary here, and we just simply hit deploy. Okay, so what's happening right now is the tool is contacting the Informatica PowerCenter server and is processing each one of these objects individually. As it's processing them, it's basically reading the source, it's generating the target table, it's deploying the target table to Oracle, it's also generating the mapping, sessions, and workflows, and deploying them to Informatica PowerCenter. We see here that the Informatica notification panel on our PowerCenter designer started changing, and that's because the InfaTools Stage Mapping Accelerator was importing objects directly into Informatica. Objects are successfully deployed. Click OK. Now we can get to see some of these objects that were created. So I'm in the PowerCenter designer. I see that the targets were created, the naming structure I provided. I have my sources. I have my mappings. So this is the mapping for the template that we chose. And then we can also look at the workflow manager and do the same and verify that the sessions were generated and the workflows associated with those sessions. Okay. Go back to the project that we created, and let's do a few modifications. First, go to the project and change the mapping from being a pass-through to something a little more complicated. We have type 1, type 2, and we generally use this map with a lot of our clients. This is a mapping that we use for a persistent staging layer. It basically does a full order join from the source and the target. It generates an audit expression, and then it basically pushes the data in a slowly changing process that maintains history. Because I changed my template, I need to go back to my mapping settings and make sure that I'm going to be deploying these objects to the location I want. In this case, I want them to be deployed to dev DW stage, which is the same folder that I had before. So what will end up happening is that the mappings that were there before will now be overridden by these new mappings that are going to be generated. Once I select these options, I go back to the deployment set. Well, I don't need to make any changes there. I'll just go ahead and deploy them. So once again, the tool is connecting to the Informatica PowerCenter server. It's basically, at this point, dropping the objects that it created before in the Oracle schema and regenerating the code. Some of these templates may have some specific needs, like audit columns that need to be applied. And because I changed my template, basically going back and redeploying that code. Okay, so I redeploy my objects. I'll go ahead and open my folder. And as I can see, the mapping that I had previously opened basically will open once again, but it actually opened with the new template that I selected, which is my full delta. And each one of the mappings were overridden with that new template. At this moment, this concludes our demo. As you saw, the Stage Mapping Accelerator has a lot of benefits that are currently not available in similar tools. It allows seamless integration to the Informatica PowerCenter repository, allowing you to basically extract information, metadata from it, and push objects, stage mapping, sessions, and workflows, as well as it allows you to connect directly to relational databases in order to extract the information from the source tables that will be used to generate those mappings. It is also customizable, so we can apply your standards and your own guidelines to the templates we use this tool within your organization. And lastly, it is project-based, so all the information that Informatica InfaTools Stage Mapping Accelerator is collecting, you can revisit it, make modifications, and redeploy your objects. I also want to mention once again that InfaTools Stage Mapping Accelerator has earned the Informatica seal of approval. It is currently listed in the Informatica Marketplace. Okay, at this moment, we'll open it up for some questions. Please keep in mind that we may not be able to answer any questions that require specific demonstration of the tool right now. However, we would be happy to schedule a meeting or a call to show you specific abilities and capabilities of the tools and anything that may be requested. Okay, and I'll pass it along to Debora.
Great. Thank you, Jerry. That was a great demonstration. I appreciate your time. Yeah, like Jerry said, we're going to open it up to Q&A. And like I mentioned earlier, this participation piece can be very valuable, so I encourage you to participate. Okay, a couple of questions have already come in. The first one, in case attendees joined late. Jerry, can you tell us if there is a cost associated with the tool?
No, at this moment, we don't have any cost for the tool. It is actually an add-on to our services offering for Datasource Consulting. So it comes along for the duration of the project in order to accelerate it and get to the end goal sooner.
Perfect. Thank you. Second question, does InfaTools support all versions of PowerCenter, or does it only support specific versions?
We have tested the Stage Mapping Accelerator, and it supports versions of Informatica from 8.6 to the latest 9.61 hotfix 3.
Are there any prerequisites required to get going with the InfaTool?
The application is written entirely in Java. It is very portable, and there are no requirements other than being able to execute from the same location as your Informatica PowerCenter client and the access necessary to deploy the objects to both databases and PowerCenter server.
On one of the last slides that you had up there, you had mentioned that it's very customizable. Can you talk in a little bit more detail about how much customization the tool allows?
Currently, we support pretty much all of the objects that you may encounter in a regular stage mapping. We're talking about joiners, lookups, expressions, filters, update strategies, even store procedures if you're trying to apply some kind of a auto-balancing control. It also allows for multiple pipes. We've had a few clients where they've actually requested that we set up a template for a target load plan, which means that you actually have 3 pipes in one mapping, one for the beginning of the session, one for the end, and the middle one, which will be migrating the data or extracting the data and pushing it. We've also used normalizers and other transformations, but for the most part, it supports all the transformations you would encounter while building a regular stage mapping process.
Thanks, Jerry. I know when I'm out talking to clients and I talk to them about InfaTools, a question that consistently comes up is they want to know if once you use the tool and leverage it, is it easy to pull it back out, or are they committed once they use it?
Yes, there's actually, once we implement the tool in the environment, there's actually nothing tying it up to the system itself. So it is just used for generating stage mapping sources, transformations, sessions, and workflows. And once it's done, it basically can be removed without any side effects to the environment.
And are there any maintenance considerations, like before they get going with this tool, that they need, that it would be helpful to know in advance if they're going to use the tool?
No, there's actually no maintenance associated with it other than just having the proper permissions to access the environment. The tool basically is standalone, and it will connect directly to both the Informatica PowerCenter server as well as the databases, so it comes all in one package.
I know that once the tool was launched in 2013, that quite a few enhancements have been done since that time. Can you just kind of talk a little bit about the progression of the tool?
The first year we showed them the application in Informatica World, the whole UI looked different. We first attempted to build a UI that looked more like an IDE, and eventually we realized that clients needed more customization, or they wanted more customization, and we needed to adapt. And in order to do so, we basically simplified the tool and made it a series of screens that can be followed from beginning through end, making it easy to develop stage mappings. We've done several enhancements to the tool. One of them is the ability of modifying the target tables. Previously, you could not build any stage mapping tables that did not have a primary key without any manual intervention, whereas now we provide a screen where it visually tells you when an object table does not conform to what it needs to be in order to generate the stage mapping, such as having a primary key. That's very critical, especially if you're doing a delta or a lookup on a target table that requires to connect back and find uniqueness in that table. No longer are we limited by not having a primary key on the source. We can actually apply that at the target level and then move forward with generating the mappings. The other big enhancement that we did was that data type mapping screen that I showed earlier. That data type mapping screen allows for changing the data type from one database to another on the fly. This is something that before we had canned as part of the tool, and it was very difficult to modify. We had a series of initialization files that we used, but now we've opened up so that it is easier to modify and change data types as they come from one database system to a different database system being used as the target.
Thanks, Jerry. And we've had a couple more questions come in. I'm going to jump to one of these questions and try and answer it. The question came in on cost efficiency using InfaStaging tool. And what I can say is we use the tool in a number of projects, and it seems to save somewhere between 28 and 30%. Next question, Jerry, can we upload our customized mapping template?
No, not currently. At this point, basically what we would do is we would look at your template, and we would design one to be used with the Stage Mapping Accelerator. One of the good things about the tool is that its templates are separate from the tool itself. So we can actually generate a template, just load it to the template folder in the application, and the next time you open the application, it will see that a new template is available to you. We've had that previous clients, as we've used the tool, we've had that popping up from time to time. We've developed ways and methods to generate templates faster. Before, we used to hard code these templates. Now we basically have an internal process that accelerates the time that it takes us to build these custom templates as the clients have had them in their environment.
Great. Okay. We'll give it just one more minute here if there's any last-minute questions, and we can answer those. If not, we'll go ahead and close things out. A quick highlight here, Informatica is starting their Mini World Tour series. The first one will be taking place in Dallas, Texas on Wednesday, September 9th. It's an all-day event. Datasource will be there. I've looked at the agenda. It looks like it's pretty rich in content, so we're excited to be sponsoring and a participant at that event. With that, I want to leave everyone with our contact information. You know, sometimes you leave these types of presentations and you think of a question an hour later that you really wish you had asked. So please feel free. You'll see our emails. They're just below our photos. So if you have any questions, then please reach out to us, and hopefully we can answer those quickly. And if it's a more in-depth question, then we're happy to jump on a WebEx and dig in a little bit more detail into your environment and what you're trying to accomplish. So thank you, everyone, for your attendance, and we look forward to seeing you again at our next webinar. Take care.